There's a caveat I'll get to in a second, but the reason it's the right thing to do is if you don't act really aggressively now, given the disruption to the economy, given that small and medium-sized businesses have seen their revenue just collapse, given the rise in unemployment, you will be living with the aftermath for years and years and years. This is a Humpty Dumpty moment where if it breaks too much, it's very difficult to put it back together again later. So kudos to the central banks. Kudos, by the way, to the European Union for reaching an agreement just a few minutes ago about on the fiscal side. All of this is great. Now, here's the issue, though. The administration of all this stuff, the execution of it is very complicated and it needs attention. So there are problems that are probably worse than what's been reported in the way that the SBA program is being handled. The new Fed facilities that were announced today have lots of questions around them, like part of it's for additional loans on top of existing loans, but how does that exactly work with the security that's attached to the existing loans? What if the maturities are different? There are all sorts of practical questions that are really important to get right and to get money moving quickly, because it's no benefit to have these programs in place and then not have the assistance actually flowing out the door. And then final point, we all need to realize that in the absence of a vaccine, which will be, as I heard Bill Gates' comments right on your show before, which will be delayed, or an antiviral or therapeutic, we are going to be in a world of intermittent social distancing for some period of time where you put the social distancing on, the disease comes back in force, and you have to go back into social distancing, like has happened in Hong Kong, like has happened in Singapore. And in that environment, we are likely to need more stimulus. And so that brings me back to the point of the administration. You need to remember there's going to be fraud. There's going to be backlash. It hasn't really happened yet. It will come. But we need to kind of power through that and adopt additional measures to help the economy, again, to avoid the Humpty Dumpty effect.
Yeah, and certainly when you talk about social distancing and intermittent social distancing, it also makes me think of polio and the outbreaks we had here 70, 80 years ago, and that playing out as well. I'm curious, though, because time is of the essence. So we're seeing all of these programs, all of these initiatives that are being launched by the federal government right now and being done so really at record speed. In terms of that oversight, what needs to happen and how quickly could it actually happen?
Well, I think the more oversight, the better, in part because we really do need to get money out the door fast. And if you don't have any oversight at all, you're just asking for trouble. There will be more fraud than is necessary. There will be more backlash than is necessary. And you're therefore harming yourself down the road. You can get money out the door quickly and still have some basic oversight and basic kind of good governance around these programs. So I think it's great that we're experimenting with lots of different programs. There's like an alphabet soup that's developing of different forms and different facilities and what have you. That's all great because we are in a moment where that kind of aggressive action is absolutely warranted. But that doesn't mean you don't need any oversight. And oversight does not necessarily impede speed here. And in fact, what I would say is there's a risk to too little oversight because it will generate more backlash when things go wrong, and therefore undermine the ability to do more later when we need it.
Peter, you mentioned we want to avoid the Humpty Dumpty moment in the short term. By all sort of economist estimates, it seems like unemployment realistically is probably already at about 13, 14%. What would be a Humpty Dumpty level? And are we close to it?
That we're already there. And I guess my point is let's not make it worse. So for many small businesses that have just seen their revenue disappear, every day that goes by in which they're not getting the assistance, the liquidity, the funding that they need to at least stay in operation puts them at risk of closing. And again, it's not so easy to just, if the business basically goes bankrupt or closes, to just, once the disease is handled, to just power back on and come back online. That is not very easy to do. So I think we unfortunately may already be partly in that Humpty Dumpty moment, but let's at least mitigate it or limit it as much as possible.
I want to get your thoughts, Peter, finally, on modern monetary theory, because it was sort of seen as very fringe not that long ago, even just a couple of months ago. And now it does seem to be moving more into the mainstream in the midst of this outbreak and some of the policies that are being crafted and the debates around those policies, whether it's that, whether it's universal basic income, which also seems to be moving more to the fore. Do you think that this is going to mark a shift in terms of politics and also just economics and the theories around economics in this country moving forward?
Well, I think moments like this that are, dramatic and just a massive change in the structure and operation of the economy naturally bring with them lots of big experiments. So yes, we are going to run up across the world a lot of government debt. I think that's an experiment worth running, but it's going to be substantial. We are going to have government involvement across the world, more pervasive in the economy for years to come, because the government is lending directly to corporates. It will be taking equity stakes or receiving warrants in a whole array of companies across multiple different sectors. That's not going to unwind very quickly. So yes, we are going to be in a new structure for some extended period of time. That reflects the fact that the only entity that at this point that can offset the massive economic blow that has occurred are governments, and necessarily that means we're going to be in a different relationship with the government over time for a number of years, because governments are appropriately acting quite aggressively.
Peter Orszag, thank you for joining us today. Great to get your insights.
Thanks for having me.